It was a quiet evening at the small diner tucked away on the edge of Chicago. The rain pattered softly against the windows, creating a soothing rhythm that blended with the low hum of conversation inside. The diner wasn't busy, just a few scattered, customers enjoying their meals or nursing cups of coffee. Among them sat Sophie, a teenage girl with long blonde hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She was hunched over in a corner booth, her hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug of hot chocolate. Her eyes were red and swollen, and every now and then, she wiped away fresh tears with the sleeve of her sweater. Lily Harper noticed her almost immediately. As a waitress who had worked at the diner for years, Lily had developed a keen sense of when someone needed help, or just a kind word. There was something about the way Sophie sat there, so still yet so broken, that tugged at Lily's heartstrings. She decided to check on her after finishing up with another table. When she finally approached Sophie's booth, Lily carried a gentle smile and a pot of coffee. "Hey there," she said softly, keeping her tone light but warm. "Can I get you anything else? Maybe some pie? Our cherry pie is amazing tonight." Sophie looked up briefly, startled by the voice. For a moment, she seemed unsure how to respond. Then, with a shaky breath, she shook her head. "No, thank you," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the soft clinking of dishes in the background. Lily tilted her head slightly, studying the girl's face. "You sure? You look like you could use a little pick-me-up." She paused, then added, "Or maybe just someone to talk to?" The question hung in the air between them. Sophie hesitated, her fingers tightening around the mug. Finally, she let out a small sigh and nodded. I guess talking wouldn't hurt." With that, Lily slid into the seat across from her, setting the coffee pot aside. "I'm Lily," she introduced herself, offering a reassuring smile. "And you are?" "Sophie," the girl replied quietly, glancing down at her lap. "Well, Sophie, it looks like you've got a lot on your mind. Want to tell me what's going on?" Lily asked gently, her voice full of patience and understanding. For a moment, Sophie didn't answer. She stared at the swirling liquid in her mug as if searching for the right words. When she finally spoke, her voice wavered. "It's my family," she began. "Things have been really hard lately. My dad lost his job, and we're struggling to pay rent. Mom works all the time, but it's not enough. And now—" Her voice cracked, and she stopped to take a deep breath. "Now we might lose our house." Lily listened intently, her expression softening further. She knew what it felt, like to struggle, to worry about bills and wonder if tomorrow would bring relief or more hardship. A single mother herself, she understood the weight of responsibility and the fear of falling short. But hearing Sophie's story stirred something deeper within her. This girl was so young, yet already burdened by worries no teenager should have to carry. "I'm sorry you're going through this," Lily said sincerely. "That sounds incredibly tough." Sophie nodded, blinking back fresh tears. "I just feel so helpless, like there's nothing I can do to fix things. Everyone keeps telling me to focus on school, but how am I supposed to do that when everything else is falling apart?" "You're doing the best you can," Lily reassured her. "And that's more than most people realize. Sometimes just getting through the day is an accomplishment." Sophie managed a weak smile at that, though it quickly faded. "But what if it's not enough? What if I let everyone down?" Lily reached across the table, placing a comforting hand over Sophie's. "Listen to me. You're stronger than you think. Life throws curveballs and, yeah, sometimes it feels impossible to keep going. But trust me, you will. One step at a time, okay?" Sophie nodded again, her grip on the mug loosening slightly. For the first time since arriving at the diner, she looked a little less overwhelmed. Lily stayed with her for a few more minutes, sharing bits of her own story, how she'd faced similar struggles as a young mother, and learned to lean on others for support. By the time she excused herself to tend to other customers, Sophie seemed marginally better, though still weighed down by her troubles. Across the room, near the window, Jonathan Drake observed the entire exchange. He was a man accustomed to blending into the background, preferring solitude over social interaction. Yet tonight, something about the scene unfolding before him caught his attention. Perhaps it was the raw emotion in Sophie's tear-streaked face, or maybe it was the genuine kindness radiating from Lily as she comforted the girl. Whatever it was, it struck a chord deep within him. Jonathan leaned back in his seat, absently stirring his coffee with a spoon. At 52, he had achieved more success than most people dreamed of. His name was synonymous with wealth and innovation, yet he often found himself questioning whether any of it truly mattered. Sitting here now, watching Lily offer solace to a stranger, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd lost sight of something important along the way. He thought back to his own childhood, the cramped apartment he shared with his mother, the nights spent worrying about where the next meal would come from. Those memories had driven him to build an empire, to ensure he'd never feel powerless again. But somewhere along the line he'd become disconnected, from people, from purpose, from the very emotions that once fueled his ambition. As Lily returned to Sophie's table with a piece of cherry pie and a note scribbled on a napkin, Jonathan felt a flicker of admiration. Here was a woman who gave freely of herself, expecting nothing in return. It was a quality he admired but rarely encountered in his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. His gaze lingered on the two of them for a moment longer before shifting to the rain-speckled window. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, its lights blurred by droplets cascading down the glass. For the first time in years, Jonathan allowed himself to consider the possibility of change, not for himself, but for someone else. And as the idea took root in his mind, he realized it might be exactly what he needed to find meaning again. By the time Sophie left the diner, clutching the napkin with Lily's number and a whispered promise to call if she needed anything, Jonathan had made up his mind. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away from this night unchanged. The next day, Jonathan Drake returned to the diner. It wasn't something he typically did, revisiting places or people outside his usual routine, but there was something about Lily Harper that lingered in his mind. Her kindness toward Sophie had been unexpected, almost jarring in its simplicity. He found himself wanting to know more about her, about the life she led beyond the diner's counter. When he walked in, the bell above the door chimed softly, announcing his arrival. Lily glanced up from where she was refilling a customer's coffee cup. For a brief moment their eyes met, and Jonathan felt a flicker of uncertainty. Would she remember him? Did she think his presence odd? Lily approached him with a polite smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Back again?" she asked, her tone light but cautious. "Yes," Jonathan replied, taking a seat at his usual table by the window. "I wanted to ask you something." Lily raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. She set down the coffee pot and pulled out her notepad. "What can I get you?" "Nothing to eat or drink," Jonathan said quickly. "It's about Sophie, the girl you were talking to last night." At the mention of Sophie's name, Lily's demeanor shifted. Her shoulders tensed slightly and her gaze sharpened. "What about her?" Jonathan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I overheard part of your conversation about her family, their struggles. I'd like to help." Lily blinked, caught off guard. "Help? How?" "I'm not sure yet," Jonathan admitted. "But I'd like to meet them, understand their situation better. Maybe there's something I can do." Lily stared at him, her thoughts racing. On one hand, she couldn't deny that Sophie's family could use some assistance. They were barely scraping by, and the stress was taking its toll. On the other hand, Jonathan Drake was a billionaire, a man whose name was splashed across headlines for his business acumen and reclusive nature. What did he want with a struggling family like Sophie's? "You don't even know them," Lily said finally, her voice tinged with skepticism. "Why would you care?" Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "I've been where they are," he confessed. "Not exactly the same circumstances, but close enough. I know what it's like to feel powerless, to wonder if things will ever get better. If I can make a difference, even a small one, I want to try." His words struck a chord with Lily. She remembered her own battles, the nights spent worrying about how to provide for her son when money was tight. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than altruism. Men like Jonathan didn't offer help without expecting something in return. "And what do you get out of it?" she asked bluntly. Jonathan looked surprised by the question. Then, after a pause, he shrugged. "Maybe nothing. Or maybe closure. I've spent most of my life building an empire, but somewhere along the way, I lost sight of why I started. Helping someone else might remind me." Lily studied him for a long moment, searching for any hint of insincerity. All she saw was a man who seemed genuinely conflicted, perhaps even lonely. Against her better judgment, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt for now. "Okay," she said slowly. "I'll talk to Sophie and see if she's comfortable meeting you. But if anything feels off, I'm stepping in. Understood?" Jonathan nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Later that evening, Lily called Sophie. The girl sounded hesitant at first, wary of meeting a stranger, especially someone as wealthy and influential as Jonathan Drake. But Lily reassured her, explaining that Jonathan simply wanted to understand their situation before deciding how best to assist them. "He seems sincere," Lily said gently, "and I'll be there the whole time. You don't have to say yes, but it might be worth considering." After some thought, Sophie agreed. She trusted Lily, and the idea of someone offering help, real help, was too tempting to ignore. The meeting took place 2 days later at Sophie's home. Her parents, Rachel and Daniel, greeted Jonathan with polite smiles but obvious wariness. They invited him into their modest living room, where Sophie sat nervously on the couch clutching a glass of water. Jonathan introduced himself, keeping his tone warm and approachable. "Thank you for letting me come here," he began. "I know this must seem unusual, but I truly want to understand what you're going through so I can figure out how best to support you." Rachel and Daniel exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Finally, Daniel spoke up. "We appreciate the gesture, Mr. Drake, but we're not looking for charity. We just need a chance to get back on our feet." "I understand," Jonathan replied. "Charity isn't what I'm offering. Think of it more as an investment in your future." Over the next hour, Jonathan listened intently as the family shared their story. Daniel explained how he'd been laid off from his factory job 6 months ago and had struggled to find steady work since. Rachel worked long hours as a caregiver, but her income alone wasn't enough to cover rent, utilities, and groceries. Sophie added that she often skipped meals at school to save money, though she tried to hide it from her parents. As they spoke, Jonathan felt a familiar ache in his chest. Their struggles mirrored his own childhood, the constant worry, the fear of failure, the weight of responsibility falling on young shoulders. He realized then that helping this family wasn't just about easing their burdens, it was about giving them hope, a reminder that they weren't alone. By the end of the conversation, Rachel was in tears, overwhelmed by the kindness Jonathan had shown. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "No one's ever offered to help us like this before." "You don't have to say anything," Jonathan assured her. "Just let me know how I can make things easier." Sophie looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. For the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of optimism. Maybe things could get better after all. Meanwhile, Lily watched the interaction from the sidelines, her initial skepticism giving way to admiration. Jonathan had kept his promise. He listened, he empathized, and he offered solutions without making the family feel indebted to him. By the time they left Sophie's house, Lily found herself warming up to him, seeing glimpses of the man beneath the billionaire persona. On the drive back, Jonathan broke the silence. "Thank you for arranging this," he said. "I know it wasn't easy." Lily glanced at him, a small smile playing on her lips. "You handled yourself well. They needed to hear what you said." Jonathan nodded, staring out the window. "Do you think I made a difference?" "You already have," Lily replied. Sometimes just knowing someone cares is enough to keep people going. Her words stayed with him long after they parted ways. That night, as he sat alone in his penthouse, overlooking the city, Jonathan allowed himself to reflect on the day's events. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose, a reminder that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives he touched. He picked up his phone and sent a message to his assistant. Set up a scholarship fund for Sophie, and find out what resources Daniel needs to start a small business. Let's make this happen. As he pressed send, Jonathan smiled. This was only the beginning. The days following Jonathan's visit to Sophie's home were a whirlwind of activity. True to his word, he wasted no time setting things into motion. Within a week, a scholarship fund was established in Sophie's name, ensuring she wouldn't have to worry about college expenses. For Daniel, Jonathan arranged meetings with financial advisors and local business owners to explore opportunities for starting a small auto repair shop, an idea Daniel had mentioned during their conversation. Rachel received offers from Tempe, agencies that promised flexible hours so she could continue caring for her clients while spending more time with her family. Sophie couldn't believe how quickly everything changed. One moment she'd been drowning in fear and uncertainty. The next she felt like she could finally breathe again. But as grateful as she was, part of her worried about what others might think. Would people accuse them of taking charity? Would they resent Jonathan for stepping in where others hadn't? Her fears weren't unfounded. News of Jonathan Drake's involvement spread faster than anyone anticipated. A reporter somehow caught wind of the story and wrote an article titled "Billionaire. Steps in, Savior or Opportunist?" It didn't take long for the piece to go viral, sparking debates across social media and news outlets. Some praised Jonathan as a hero, someone using his wealth to make a real difference. Others accused him of exploiting Sophie's family for publicity, questioning whether his intentions were truly altruistic. Lily saw the headlines first thing in the morning when she turned on the diner's small television. Her heart sank as she watched footage of Sophie being interviewed outside her high school. Reporters swarmed around her, shoving microphones in her face and asking intrusive questions. Sophie looked overwhelmed, her cheeks flushed as she tried to answer politely but firmly. "This isn't what we wanted," Lily muttered under her breath, shaking her head. She knew this kind of attention would only complicate things for Sophie and her family. Worse still, it put Jonathan in the spotlight too, a place he clearly didn't enjoy. Later that afternoon, Jonathan called Lily. His voice was strained, tinged with frustration and regret. "I didn't see this coming," he admitted. "I thought I could handle things quietly, but somehow it got out." "It happens," Lily replied sympathetically. "People love a good story, especially when it involves someone like you. But it's not about me," Jonathan snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "It's about Sophie and her family. They don't deserve this kind of scrutiny." "No, they don't," Lily agreed. "But now that it's out there, we need to figure out how to protect them. And ourselves." Jonathan sighed heavily. "What do you suggest?" "For starters, stay away from the media," Lily advised. "Don't give interviews or make statements. Let Sophie's family speak for themselves if they want to, but don't force anything. As for us, we need to keep doing what we've been doing, supporting them without making it seem like some grand gesture." Jonathan nodded even though Lily couldn't see him. "You're right. I'll step back and let things settle. But I won't stop helping them. Not unless they ask me to." "Good," Lily said. "And maybe it's time you started thinking about why this matters so much to you." The question lingered between them, unspoken yet understood. Why did Jonathan care so deeply about Sophie's family? Was it guilt over his own privileged life? A desire to reconnect with his roots? Or something else entirely? Over the next few weeks, the frenzy began to die down. Sophie's family did their best to ignore the comments and speculation, focusing instead on rebuilding their lives. With Jonathan's support, Daniel secured a loan to open his auto repair shop, and Rachel adjusted to her new schedule, finding joy in the extra hours she could spend with Sophie. Sophie herself threw herself into her studies, determined to make the most of the scholarship opportunity. Meanwhile, Jonathan found himself visiting the diner more often. At first, it was just to check in with Lily, to ensure everything was going smoothly. But soon he realized he enjoyed their conversations, their easy banter, the way Lily challenged him to think differently. She had a sharp wit and a refreshing honesty that he rarely encountered in his usual circles. One rainy evening, as Lily cleared tables near the window, Jonathan approached her. "Can we talk?" he asked, gesturing to an empty booth. Lily hesitated, but eventually joined him. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about what you said," Jonathan began, "about why this matters to me. And I think it's because I lost sight of what really matters. For years I've focused on building my empire, chasing success, proving myself. But somewhere along the way, I forgot about the people who helped me when I needed it most. My mother, my teachers, even strangers who showed me kindness when I had nothing." Lily listened silently, her expression thoughtful. "And now? And now I want to pay it forward," Jonathan continued. "Not because I feel guilty or obligated, but because it feels right, like I'm finally doing something meaningful." Lily smiled faintly. "That's a good start, but remember, helping others isn't about fixing everything for them. It's about giving them tools, showing them they're capable of handling whatever comes their way." "You sound like you've done this before," Jonathan observed. "In a way I have," Lily admitted. "Being a mom taught me that. You can't shield your kids from every challenge. They need to learn how to face them. Same goes for everyone else. Sometimes all people need is a little push in the right direction." Jonathan nodded, absorbing her words. "Thank you, Lily, for everything." "Don't thank me yet," Lily teased. "We're not out of the woods. People are still watching, waiting to see if you mess up." "I know," Jonathan said with a rueful smile. "But at least I have you to keep me grounded." As the weeks turned into months, Sophie's family grew stronger, more resilient. The scholarship gave Sophie confidence, reminding her that she had options beyond the struggles of her current life. Daniel's auto repair shop became a neighborhood staple, earning praise for its affordable rates and honest service. Rachel found peace in knowing her family was stable, allowing her to focus on her work and her passions. Through it all, Jonathan remained a quiet presence, offering guidance when needed but never overshadowing their achievements. He visited the diner regularly, forming a tentative friendship with Lily that deepened with each passing day. Together, they discussed books, movies, and life lessons, discovering common ground despite their vastly different backgrounds. But not everyone approved of Jonathan's actions, or Lily's involvement. Whispers spread among the diner staff accusing her of using her connection to the billionaire for personal gain. Even customers made snide remarks, suggesting she'd manipulated Jonathan into helping Sophie's family. One particularly difficult day, a regular patron cornered Lily after her shift ended. "So what's in it for you?" he demanded. "Did you cozy up to Drake just to get ahead?" Lily clenched her fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "I didn't ask for any of this," she shot back. "I did what anyone would do. I helped someone in need. If you can't see that, then maybe you're the one who needs to rethink your priorities." The man scoffed but walked away, leaving Lily shaken. That night, she called Jonathan, venting her frustrations. To her surprise, he listened patiently, offering words of encouragement. "You're stronger than they realize," he told her. "Their opinions don't define you." "I know," Lily replied, her voice steadier now. "But it's exhausting, fighting against people who refuse to see the truth." "Then let's show them the truth," Jonathan suggested. "Together." Lily smiled, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she wasn't facing them alone. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful, not just for Sophie's family, but for herself and Jonathan too. The tension between Lily and Jonathan grew thicker with each passing day. While Sophie's family continued to thrive under Jonathan's support, the outside world refused to let the story fade. Rumors swirled, accusations flew, and the pressure weighed heavily on everyone involved, especially Lily. She found herself caught in the crossfire, defending not only her actions, but also Jonathan's intentions. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Lily snapped. A group of regular customers had been whispering loudly about her deal with Jonathan, insinuating that she was using him for personal gain. Their words stung more than she cared to admit. By the time Jonathan walked into the diner later, that night, Lily was already simmering with frustration. "You," she said sharply as he approached the counter. Her tone stopped him in his tracks. He hesitated before taking a seat, sensing the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. "Me?" Jonathan asked cautiously, raising an eyebrow. "What did I do this time?" Lily set down the coffee pot with a little more force than necessary. "Do you even realize what's happening out here? People are tearing me apart because of you. They think I'm some kind of opportunist, like I manipulated you into helping Sophie's family." Jonathan frowned, leaning forward slightly. "That's ridiculous. You didn't manipulate anyone. You were just being kind." "Kindness doesn't sell newspapers," Lily shot back, her voice rising. "To them, it's all about motives. And since they can't understand why you would help someone without wanting something in return, they assume I'm the reason behind it." Jonathan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I knew there would be backlash when the story got out, but I never intended for you to get dragged into this mess." "Well, here we are," Lily said bitterly. "And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if it's worth it. Maybe staying quiet would have been better, for everyone." Her words hit Jonathan, like a punch to the gut. He stared at her, searching for any sign that she didn't mean what she'd said. But her expression was firm, her jaw set in determination. For the first time, he realized how much damage his involvement had caused, not just to Sophie's family but to Lily as well. "I'm sorry," he said finally, his voice low and sincere. "I never meant for this to hurt you." Lily softened slightly, though her arms remained crossed. "I know you didn't. But good intentions don't fix everything, Jonathan. This whole situation has spiraled out of control, and I don't know how to stop it." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of conversation around them fading into the background. Outside, the rain continued to fall, tapping gently against the diner's windows. Finally, Jonathan spoke again. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "If stepping back will make things easier for you, I'll do it. Just say the word." Lily shook her head, her frustration giving way to resignation. "It's too late for that. The story's out there. People have made up their minds. If anything, disappearing now would only make things worse." "Then what do you suggest?" Jonathan pressed. "Tell me how to fix this." Lily thought for a moment, weighing her options. "We need to take control of the narrative," she said finally. "Let Sophie's family tell their own story, without us hovering over them. And as for us..." She paused, meeting his gaze. "We need to show people that we're not hiding anything. Be open, honest, and unapologetic about why you helped them." Jonathan nodded slowly, considering her advice. "You're right. It's time to stop running from the criticism and start addressing it head-on." The next morning, Jonathan called a meeting with Sophie's family. He explained the situation carefully, making sure they understood that the decision to speak publicly rested entirely with them. To his relief, Rachel and Daniel agreed to share their story, but only on their terms. "We owe it to ourselves," Rachel said firmly, "and to others who might be going through the same thing. If telling our story helps even one person feel less alone, then it's worth it." With Lily's guidance, they prepared a statement to release to the media. It was simple and heartfelt, focusing on gratitude rather than grandiosity. Sophie read it aloud during a brief press conference held at a local community center, her voice steady despite the cameras flashing around her. "We're not special," Sophie concluded. "We're just a family trying to get by. Mr. Drake gave us a chance to dream again, and for that, we'll always be thankful." The response was overwhelming. People began sharing their own stories of struggle and resilience, inspired by Sophie's courage. Slowly but surely, the narrative shifted, from suspicion and skepticism to empathy and understanding. Meanwhile, Jonathan and Lily worked together to rebuild trust within the diner community. Jonathan visited regularly, striking up conversations with staff and customers alike. At first, many were wary of him, but his genuine interest in their lives eventually won them over. He even offered to host a small event at the diner to celebrate Sophie's achievements and bring the neighborhood together. Lily, for her part, stood by Jonathan every step of the way, though she still harbored doubts about his sudden presence. In her life, she couldn't deny the positive impact he'd had, not just on Sophie's family, but on the entire community. Their friendship deepened as they navigated the challenges together, learning from each other along the way. One evening, after closing up the diner, Lily joined Jonathan at his table near the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the glow of streetlights. For once, the atmosphere felt peaceful. "You've changed," Lily remarked, studying him closely. "You seem lighter." Jonathan chuckled softly. "Maybe I am. Helping others. It's given me a sense of purpose I haven't felt in years." "And what about me?" Lily teased. "Have I changed too?" Jonathan smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "You've always been strong, Lily, but now you're teaching me how to be brave." Lily rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a grin. "Well, someone has to keep you grounded." Their laughter filled the quiet diner, a stark contrast to the tension that had lingered between them just weeks earlier. As they talked, Lily realized something important. Jonathan wasn't perfect, and neither was she. But together, they were, finding a way to navigate the complexities of kindness, humility, and human connection. Outside, the clouds parted, revealing a sliver of moonlight. Inside, the diner buzzed with newfound energy, a testament to the power of second chances and the ripple effect of a single act of compassion. And for the first time in a long time, both Lily and Jonathan allowed themselves to hope that maybe, just maybe, the best was yet to come. The event at the diner was more than just a celebration. It was a turning point for everyone involved. Jonathan had worked tirelessly to organize it, ensuring every detail reflected gratitude and community spirit. Lily, Sophie's family, and even some of the regular customers pitched in to make the evening special. For once, the focus wasn't on money or fame, but on connection and shared humanity. As the clock struck 7, the diner buzzed with energy. Tables were pushed together to create space for mingling, and a homemade banner that read "Thank you" hung proudly above the counter. Sophie stood nervously by the cake, a modest chocolate creation decorated with colorful sprinkles, while her parents greeted neighbors and friends who had come to support them. Jonathan arrived early, dressed casually for the first time in what felt like years. He wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks, looking far less intimidating than his usual sharp suit suggested. When he entered, Lily waved him over, her smile wide and genuine. "You did good," she said, nodding toward the crowd. "This feels real." Jonathan followed her gaze, watching as Sophie laughed with a group of classmates. "I hope so," he replied quietly. "It's about time something I've done actually mattered." Lily gave him a playful nudge. "Don't sell yourself short. Look around. You brought these people together. That's no small thing." For a moment, Jonathan allowed himself to take in the scene. Rachel chatting animatedly with one of the diner's cooks, Daniel shaking hands with a local business owner, and Sophie cutting the cake under the watchful eyes of her proud parents. Even the skeptics who had questioned his motives seemed to soften, their earlier criticisms melting away in the warmth of the gathering. When it was time for speeches, Jonathan stepped up reluctantly. Public speaking wasn't his forte, but tonight, he wanted to say something meaningful. Holding a microphone borrowed from the karaoke machine, he cleared his throat and began. "I know I'm not the easiest person to trust," he admitted, earning a few chuckles from the audience. "And I'll be honest, I didn't expect any of this when I walked into this diner months ago. All I saw was a young woman crying and another offering comfort. It reminded me of things I'd forgotten: kindness, resilience, and the power of community." He paused, glancing at Sophie and her family before continuing. "Helping Sophie and her family wasn't about charity or publicity. It was about remembering why I started working so hard in the first place. to give others a chance, to make life a little easier for people who deserve better. Applause erupted, breaking the silence that had fallen during his speech. Sophie wiped away tears as her mother hugged her tightly, whispering words of gratitude. Even Lily found herself blinking back emotion, though she tried to hide it by busying herself with refilling drink orders. After Jonathan finished, Lily took the floor briefly. Her voice carried authority and warmth as she addressed the crowd. "We're here tonight because of kindness," she said simply. "Kindness isn't loud or flashy. It's quiet and steady, like the people in this room. So thank you all for showing up, for supporting each other, and for reminding us what really matters." By the end of the night, the diner felt lighter, as if the weight of judgment and doubt had lifted. Conversations flowed freely, laughter echoed off the walls, and strangers became friends. Jonathan lingered longer than planned, savoring the sense of belonging he hadn't felt in decades. In the days following the event, the narrative surrounding Jonathan's involvement shifted dramatically. People praised him not for his wealth, but for his humility and willingness to listen. Articles highlighted Sophie's academic achievements and Daniel's growing auto repair shop, emphasizing the family's determination rather than their struggles. Slowly, the controversy faded, replaced by stories of hope and renewal. But the changes weren't limited to public perception. Within the diner, relationships deepened. Regular patrons who had once whispered about Lily now approached her openly, apologizing for their earlier suspicions. Some even expressed admiration for how she handled the situation, calling her courageous and compassionate. One afternoon, as Lily wiped down tables after lunch rush, an older woman named Margaret approached her. Margaret had been one of the harshest critics, often questioning Lily's motives aloud. Now she looked sheepish, twisting her purse strap nervously. "I owe you an apology," Margaret began, her voice trembling slightly. "I judged you unfairly, and I'm sorry." Lily set down her rag, surprised but touched by the gesture. "Thank you for saying that," she replied softly. "It means a lot." Margaret nodded, then added, "You've got a good heart, Lily. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As the woman walked away, Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. Forgiveness wasn't always easy to give or receive, but moments like this reminded her why it mattered. For Jonathan, the transformation was equally profound. His visits to the diner became less about checking in on Sophie's family and more about enjoying the camaraderie he'd found there. He learned customers' names, listened to their stories, and even helped out behind the counter when things got busy. It was humbling work, but it grounded him in ways his penthouse office never could. One rainy evening, as Lily and Jonathan closed up the diner together, they reflected on how much had changed since their initial meeting. "You know," Jonathan mused, stacking chairs onto tables, "I used to think success meant building empires, but now," Lily prompted, arching an eyebrow. "But now I think it's about building connections," he finished. "About making sure the people around you feel seen and valued." Lily smiled, tossing a dish towel onto the counter. "Not bad for a billionaire." Jonathan laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment." Their banter came easily now, a sign of the bond they'd forged through shared challenges and triumphs. Though neither would admit it outright, they had become important to each other. Not as employer and employee or benefactor and recipient, but as equals navigating life's complexities side by side. Sophie, too, noticed the shift. With the scholarship secured and her family stable, she threw herself into schoolwork and extracurricular activities. She started volunteering at the library, tutoring younger students in math and science. Each time she passed the diner, she made a point to stop in, thanking Lily and Jonathan again for believing in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "It's funny," Sophie confessed one day, sitting in her usual booth. "Before all this, I thought success was something you achieved alone. But now I realize it's about having people who lift you up." Lily grinned, setting a slice of pie in front of her. "Welcome to the club, kiddo." As Sophie dug into her dessert, Jonathan joined them, carrying 3 steaming cups of coffee. To lifting each other up, he toasted, raising his mug. To second chances, Lily added, clinking her cup against his. And to kindness, Sophie concluded, smiling brightly. The trio sat together, laughing and talking late into the night, unaware that their story was far from over. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away the remnants of doubt and fear. Inside, the diner glowed with warmth and promise, a testament to the power of compassion and human connection. For Lily, Jonathan, and Sophie, the journey ahead wouldn't always be easy. But they faced it together, knowing they had already overcome the hardest part, learning to trust themselves and each other. Months passed and life settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Sophie's family thrived, thanks to the opportunities Jonathan had helped create. Daniel's auto repair shop became a neighborhood staple, known not just for its affordable rates but also for the sense of community it fostered. Rachel found joy in balancing work and family, her stress easing as financial burdens lifted. And Sophie? She blossomed. Her confidence grew, her grades improved, and she began dreaming of college programs she once thought were out of reach. For Jonathan, the changes weren't external but internal. He no longer craved the spotlight or measured his worth by headlines. Instead, he found fulfillment in small moments, sharing stories with Lily over coffee, listening to Daniel talk about his latest project, or watching Sophie laugh with her friends. These connections reminded him of something he'd forgotten, that true success wasn't about wealth or power, but about making a difference, however small. Lily, too, noticed the shift within herself. Her initial skepticism toward Jonathan had melted away, replaced by respect and maybe even friendship. They didn't always agree, but their conversations were honest and meaningful, grounded in mutual understanding. Together, they navigated the aftermath of the media frenzy, learning to let go of judgment and focus on what truly mattered. One crisp autumn evening, Jonathan invited Lily and Sophie to join him for a walk in the park. It was a simple gesture, one meant to celebrate how far they'd come without fanfare or expectation. As they strolled along the winding paths, the setting sun cast long shadows across the grass, painting the world in hues of gold and amber. "I used to hate parks," Jonathan admitted, as they approached a wooden bench overlooking a pond. "Too many memories of sitting here alone, wondering if I was doing enough." Lily raised an eyebrow, curious. "And now?" "Now, I think they're kind of nice," he said with a smile, "especially when you're not alone." They sat down together, watching Sophie toss pebbles into the water. Each ripple seemed to carry a piece of their shared journey, the struggles, the triumphs, and everything in between. "You've changed, you know," Lily said after a moment of silence. "You're not the same man who walked into my diner all those months ago." Jonathan chuckled softly. "Is that a good thing?" "It's a great thing," Lily replied firmly. "You've learned to listen, not just to others but to yourself. That's rare." Sophie wandered back to them, brushing leaves off her hands. "What are we talking about?" she asked, plopping down on the bench beside Lily. "How much your Uncle Jonathan has grown up," Lily teased, earning a playful glare from Jonathan. "I'm serious," Lily continued, turning to Sophie. "He came here thinking he could fix everything with money, but he stayed because he realized it's not about fixing. It's about helping people find their own strength." Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "Like how you helped me see I could handle things even when it felt impossible." "Exactly," Lily agreed. "And look at you now, you're stronger than ever." Sophie smiled, glancing at Jonathan. "I couldn't have done it without you guys. Both of you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Jonathan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "We all need someone to believe in us sometimes. That's what keeps us going." The simplicity of his words resonated deeply. For so long, each of them had carried their burdens silently, convinced they had to face challenges alone. But here, in this park at sunset, surrounded by the beauty of nature and the warmth of friendship, they understood something profound. Vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was strength. Asking for help, offering support, and trusting others were acts of courage that bound them together. As the sky deepened into shades of purple and orange, Sophie stood up, stretching her arms. "Do you think we'll ever stop surprising each other?" she asked half-jokingly. "Not a chance," Lily answered with a grin. "Life's too unpredictable for that." Jonathan nodded in agreement. "And that's what makes it beautiful. Every twist and turn teaches us something new, about ourselves, about others, about the world." They fell silent then, content to simply sit together and watch the sun dip below the horizon. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, its song blending seamlessly with the rustle of trees. Later, as they made their way back to the parking lot, Lily paused, looking up at the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "this whole thing started with kindness, a single act that rippled outward. Who knows where it'll lead next?" Jonathan smiled, his gaze meeting hers. "Wherever it leads, I'm glad we're in it together." Sophie linked arms with both of them, her laughter ringing out like music. "Me too," she said. "No matter what happens, we've got each other." And so, under the vast expanse of the night sky, they walked side by side, three very different people brought together by chance, connected by compassion, and united by hope. Their story wasn't perfect. There had been bumps along the way, moments of doubt and frustration, but through it all they had discovered something invaluable, the power of human connection. Back at the diner the next day, customers greeted Lily warmly, some stopping to thank her for organizing such a memorable event. Jonathan joined her behind the counter during lunch rush, laughing as he fumbled with orders. Sophie stopped by after school, proudly showing off her latest report card. Life wasn't without its challenges, but it felt lighter, brighter, and infinitely more hopeful. In the end, it wasn't the grand gestures or the headlines that defined them. It was the quiet, steady acts of kindness, the willingness to listen, to trust, to care, that left a lasting impact. And as Lily poured another cup of coffee and Jonathan handed change to a customer, they knew they were exactly where they were meant to be.